pause while Chair puts away his phone. And as it will interrupt with the proceedings and the interference on the system. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and therefore, when speaking, please remember to speak clearly. As the chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and live streaming if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceeding of the meeting. Recording and live streaming of confidential items will also not take place. To alert me that you wish to speak, please raise your hand and wait for me to call upon you before speaking. Please remember, if you leave the meeting for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item that has been discussed at that time. Members of the public will be able to view the live stream of the meeting via YouTube. Please, can I ask that when you are speaking, you make your points as succinct as possible to allow for the smooth running of the meeting. And can I also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times, and to make our comments constructive. Thank you very much. I'm assuming we are now recording. Okay, right. So first of all, apologies. I received apologies from Councillor Garside on holiday. We received any other apologies? Mr. Fernandez, who's unwell, and right, apart from that, Councillor Smith Roberts.
I'm subbing for Councillor Vanessa Garside.
Okay, great, and hopefully Councillor Ray Tully will turn up. So, with that, we can move on to declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest they wish to declare? A pecuniary basis based on the agenda that we have set before us. Okay, right. Next item, the minutes of our previous meeting, which was on the 7th of November, I believe. Do I have any comments? Are we happy to pass them as they are written? In that case, can I have a proposal? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Can I have a seconder? Something needs to put up there.
I wasn't here. I was here, so
You were here. Were you here, Ed?
Yeah, you don't have to have been in present to.
Well,
approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stapleton. All those in favour, please show their hands. It's good, that's passed. Right. Next item, the forward plan. We have on the screen. Okay, does anyone have any comments about the forward plan? This is it only really extends to the next meeting, which is on the 6th of March. It seems to be mostly updates, operations and assets, strategy and plan. What hopefully would it be written by then? Would it be completed? Okay, so the plan is will be yes, so it will be completed by then for us to read. Are there any other comments about the forward plan? Depending on what happens with Goodlands Garden Bridge be coming up on it. Marcus?
Sorry, Chair. I understand that full council delegated that to the Planning, Development and Licensing Committee due to the expertise of the chair. They considered the matter at their last meeting in December, and a recommendation from them has gone to full council on Tuesday evening for you to consider.
Right. Okay, so we won't be expecting that. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, we shall pass on that one. Right, next item is on our notice boards, of which we have several around the town, mainly from what was in the existing parishes. So we're going to consider the replacement and upgrade of several of our notice boards across Taunton, and the reason why will be explained shortly. And we're also going to have a further discussion on replacement of notice boards to be delegated to the operations and assets manager. And for this, I believe I'm calling on Tilly. Yes, lovely, thank you.
So we carried out and assessed our notice boards across Taunton. And noticed that, well, it's been said before that we need to engage with our communities more, and we've realised that notice boards is what needs upgrading. So they've all been scored. We set a scoring matrix, and that's all been identified as having 7 of our notice boards to be replaced, 4 new ones in our parks allocated in the report, and any notice boards that don't have branding already to have TTC branding installed. So a few of them do already have branding, so we would copy that branding across and have that on all of them to keep it in line with our name and TTC branding. So we're requesting the full amount of £16,724 to come from the sufficient budget line from the infrastructure improvement notice boards budget line. So I'm happy to take any questions from that.
Lovely, thank you. Do I have any questions? Yes, Councillor Furman.
Thank you. Yes, within the report, you state that each board would cost about 1,100. Were there any other quotes or prices that you could have
Yeah.
forged on?
So actually, that was one of the. It was one of the most cost effective. It was actually quite surprising how expensive notice boards can be, especially the material of them. So we had quotes similar 1,600, 1,700, 2,000. That was quite, I think actually that was one of the lowest. There was a few for nearly 600 and 1,000, but then it comes down to the quality of the board itself and what we were wanting, because obviously we want the one side of it to be locked for us to put our notices on, and the other side to be for the public. So I think that was kind of key when we were looking what we wanted, and that was one of the best prices that we found in terms of quotes, really.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I'm happy to support this because they do need updating and looking at being more modern and have the relevant information in. I think my comments centre around the future ambitions section, partly about actually having a policy as to what we want on them and what we will allow on them. Also, who actually has access to keys as an example. So I know that other ones that aren't currently in Taunton Town Council ownership, but are in kind of our more residential areas. Sometimes the residential group or the friends of group may have access to them. So it's just around thinking about what that means. And also, I think it was good to see the example of having councillor details on there. I think we need to widen it, because if you take Hamilton Park, it's used by both those who sit within the Holcombe ward and those that sit within the Blackbrook and Holway ward. So it's about identifying that actually it could have multiple councillor details on.
Councillor Stainsel.
Yeah, just one quick question really on the robustness of them. I take it they have, because that's a problem that we do have, especially probably with notice boards that are maybe out of the way in terms of sort of the view of public areas, in terms of any damage that's done or antisocial behaviour. I take it they will be of a standard of sort of the pricing will reflect that, by not going necessarily at the cheapest, to make sure you get something that's going to be fairly robust.
Yeah, the company itself, I think their notice board, I can check the actual timings of it, but it was over for I can remember it's like 20, yeah, years that they've had this notice board for. So they are robust, and that was one of the key things that kind of drew it to it, as well as the environmental side of it, as in you're not having to replace these every so often, because yeah, it is, you just see notice boards are like multiple things. Yeah, so hopefully the aim with that is that you don't need to replace for 20+ years.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I'm obviously support this. I think it's really, really vital to have that is very visible presence and that useful information in key locations. I just wonder, I do agree that it'd be very helpful to have a notice board in Frenchweir Park and Ribery, Hawthorne Park, Taunton Green. And has anyone sort of thought about other key locations maybe for the future? Maybe this isn't right for right now, I know, but because I'm just thinking round Rosebery Terrace, Ruffmore Crescent, there's a sort of, I know they're a bit tucked out of the way, and it might be quite, I can think of a few other places, you know, and I think we need to look at the map and think, well, what are people's movements? If they're passing, certainly there's a high traffic area where lots of people pass, would it be a good idea to have a notice board there? So I just, you know, just flagging that for the future. And what was my, oh yes, so who will be responsible for like checking them? Will that be town warden, somebody else? And I think something Fred raised about you know, if somebody was to put something like offensive up in it, that's why I was asking about who's checking it. And I do agree with Fred that it'd be great if any relevant friends group had a key. I don't know if it's somewhere like Frenchweir, I'm happy to check and just check that nobody, if I had a key or whatever, or actually, well, it won't be, it's public, isn't it? So it's open, that bit, the section will be open. But I could check that, but I just wondered whose job is it? Curious about that, to update them, whatnot.
So the maintenance side will come from the maintenance team. So we'll have a schedule in place for that. And then the notice boards, the notices themselves, we're hoping for the media team to kind of set a plan of maybe every 6 months to have a refresh of them all. Because then we'd, obviously the environment is, again, we're trying to put down on how much paper we use, etc. So it will be every 6 months that we're planning at the moment to have a refresh of the boards, and kind of, because sometimes things get on there and they're like they've been there for like a year or something. So we're hoping for it to be quite ongoing as it gets replaced, and you can see, and then obviously our posts that go on there will be replaced every 6 months or so as well. But yeah, majority it'll be the maintenance team that deal with all the maintenance of it, and then hopefully the communications team will do the post side of it.
And presumably if we're doing like consultations and engagement, that's a good way of having, you know, that might be not tie in with the 6 month schedule, so we can send somebody out extra to pop a little notice out when X and Y engagement's happening. Thank you.
Councillor Smith-Roberts?
I had some additional questions that just popped up from Carrie's. Is one, are they going to be wooden, or can we paint them in our corporate colours of purple, but does that incur extra cost? And I'm chilled either way, but it's just a thought so that actually you can see branding. And then actually we were talking about where else they're wanted. I'm wondering whether the company that we're buying from would also have the notice boards available that we could put in our toilets, so that actually the work that we're doing and what we want to put up in our parks, like our next lot of meetings, or there's something, whether actually we do a deal to put up in our toilet blocks or on outside of our toilet buildings, so they don't have legs. And then that again is another way of people seeing how they can interact with us. And again, I think it was a QR code that kind of got me thinking as well on that.
Yes, actually, just before you answer that, my question was going to be is I take it we're just buying one standard type of board.
Yeah.
Because looking at the boards we're replacing, they're all different varieties. We've got some that are mounted on the wall, we've got some that are on posts, some that are thin, some that are wider. Is the so we are just replacing one standard type, in which we can design to our own corporate colours.
They are just a standard colour, they're like a dark brown.
Okay.
But I guess our branding will just come from GTC at the top, yeah.
And is the one that's added in the appendix. Is that a typical, is that what it's going to look like, the notice board?
Yes.
In the appendix. Okay, so that's two sides that are both lockable.
So one side will be lockable and the other side will be available to the public. There are different options you can add on, so we thought that was best to keep our things.
Yeah.
Safe and the ones.
So the other side is available for anyone to come along and stick a notice in.
It would just be a time handle.
Okay, and how do we monitor who's putting up?
Not the public, how do we?
Yeah. That'd be something.
That there's a part of the report says we need to create some kind of policy around that, because yeah, there is a need for that. So yeah, it's in the report.
Councillor Stainsel?
And yeah, just on that subject, Nick, the public part of the notice board is really important. They get used an awful lot. They get used, certainly used a lot in my ward in Comitro. I personally have used them over the years to do with whether it's litter picks or just things that the local community are doing. It's not necessarily through the council. So it is important. Some of them are just open. They're not closed. They're just open pin boards, basically. And a lot of people just laminate things, put them onto the boards. But it is important to have something. I know where Nick's coming from in terms of what if somebody puts something on there inappropriate. However, to be fair, I've never seen a problem around us. And I think if there is anything there, the local people who do use them a lot are pretty quick to take it down in anything that they find. So I think that should be okay.
Are there any other comments? If not, Councillor Fairman?
Yes, I was just thinking that I do a councillor surgery, and I was thinking I could, whether that would be sort of on the Taunton town side or whether I'd have to put that on the public side. But I guess that can be decided with when we do the policy.
So, yes, I suppose at some point we need to decide where else notice boards could go to. How would we proceed with that?
And there's lots of different ways you could. I think this is probably just the first tranche of the whole project. It's just replacing those that are really in need of replacing and adding new ones where there's obvious gaps. But yeah, it can be an ongoing process. This committee could decide where we think they need to be. We could run some kind of consultation. There's lots of ways we could go about it.
I think I'd certainly like to see notice boards in all our green spaces. There certainly isn't one in my local park. I think it'd be very helpful to have one. Right, so we have, we're ready to vote on this? Yeah, so we're going to, we're taking both together to seek agreement for the replacement and upgrade to several of our notice boards across Taunton, and also to agree to further decisions on replacement of notice boards to be delegated to the operations and assets manager and the team. So do I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Seconder? Councillor Fairman. All those in favour of this recommendation? Great, lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, next item, speed indicator devices. And we're just having an update from Paul.
Good evening, everybody. So this is just a verbal update about where we are with speed indicator devices. As you know, we purchased 3 as a town council a little while ago. Got them in place in 3 locations pre-Christmas. Because of Christmas, they've actually stayed in those locations a little longer than would normally be the case, which is a 2-weekly cycle in either direction in each location. However, since that, we've moved on. There have been requests for additional SIDs to be purchased. So next week, we're putting forward an application for some SIL monies to buy an additional 3 and an additional 10 brackets. And I have put the next list of proposed locations forward to Somerset Highways, and I'm currently waiting for their approval because I need to check each of the lampposts to make sure it's capable of carrying the weight of the device. So there are a number of locations. I think it's something like 12 to 15 new locations. Obviously, if we sequenced with the 3 existing SIDS that we have, it would take a long time to get to those at the bottom of the list. Hence the advancement of the proposal to get a total of 6. And then we can get them in more places more frequently and get a global picture of what's happening around Taunton. Just for clarity, the trigger point on SIDS to refer an issue to other forces, other organisations such as the police force, is advised 12 miles an hour above 30 miles an hour limit as an average. It is going to take some serious issue to attain that trigger point. When you think of the traffic at a busy time on a busy road that is travelling at 5 miles an hour, it's actually going to bring that average fairly low. So to get to 42 miles an hour at an average in a 30 zone is fairly remote. So it just need to be cited on that in the real world. However, what it will enable us to do is to collate the data that is being collected in both directions all the time from these and form a picture of Taunton and where we might like to focus some pressure on potentially highways for making changes in those areas, irrespective of the actual police related involvement in that.
Thank you very much, Paul. Councillor Stainthorpe?
Thanks for that, Paul. I know there was a lot of residents interested in the SIDS being put in place. It is quite frightening that it has to be 12 miles an hour above the speed limit and as an average, because that would be really, really difficult to do. But given that actually if a speed camera is in place, it's 10% above the speed limit is what you actually get fined for. It seems a bit crazy that they're taking an average of much, much higher than that. You then have to question, it's a difficult one of investing in another 3 SIDS if they actually aren't going to do anything. And I'm just thinking about the investment of money that's council money if these things aren't actually going to make a difference. So I just sort of thinking about that one just now, is a bit of a concern.
I do think the SIDS are making a difference because just the visible being told you're over the limit, majority of motorists do respond to that, so they are very good. We placed one up in my area, and the resident who asked for it was observing, and she just saw that as soon as the traffic saw it, they slowed down immediately. So they do have a good impact on that aspect. Paul.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say I'm also in liaison with police who've left a message from me this week. I need to get back to them to discuss that particular issue because I'm not happy about that trigger point personally. I think it's a nominal figure that avoids interjection. So I'm going to have a wider discussion about what flexibility there is around that, whether it's a resourcing issue, whether there's other ways that we can encourage that enforcement action if we believe there's a problem that might not meet that threshold. So I'm open to having that discussion, which I hope to do next week.
Councillor Smith-Roberts and Councillor Fernan. You don't have to do anything.
Don't press anything. Okay. I really welcome us having the SIDS. I think that they have a natural kind of deterrent on drivers so that when you see them and then it naturally, I think, tells people to slow down. That's my personal view. I don't know if studies suggest that, but I would presume so with how people use them. I do think that we need more of them and that we can move around different locations so that we can monitor it. I am surprised by the fact that what you said, Paul, in relation to that you have to be significantly over for the police to take action. And I would welcome us as a council to put pressure on the police to find out how we look at either working with them to find other solutions. I think it would be good if we could see the data, if that's possible, of where there are incidents of those that are considerably over that. so that we can see actually there's enough data to say that people, and this may not to be the case, but say someone's going down 50 down a 30-mile-an-hour road, and we notice that there are certain patterns in the day where perhaps people are driving loops around Taunton and the SIDS are picking up kind of that, so that we can maybe use that data for the police to do their patrols accordingly. There's also something I think on us that if we see there's a need, that we work and try to invigorate speed watch groups to take place. There are some good speed watch groups in Taunton. I know of the one that operates within the Blackbrook area. By a speed watch being in place, and I stand to be corrected on this, but they actually, because they've been trained by the police and that they're in certain locations, they can actually use the data they collect can be used by the police to take action on the vehicles that they log. They can't find them, but they can at least try and pursue that people to educate them on their behaviour. So there's something about us being the catalyst through SIDS to use multi kind of leverage to try different mechanisms so that we get people to slow down.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we haven't downloaded the data from the first set yet because of Christmas period. But it would be interesting to see what that data looks like and where those tweaks are that don't meet the average criteria, but clearly indicate another problem. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that and seeing what we can do about it. There has been some negative press on social media about the council getting involved, and they're not the police, you know, but ultimately I believe the good of the whole town is at stake, and therefore I'm quite happy to get extras in. There is a resource required to chop them around fairly frequently, but I think we can absorb that within the existing establishment and get a better pattern of how our town operates and be able to take some actions appropriately.
Yes, we might not be the police, but we can certainly be a large speed watch organisation. And I'm assuming, so we get all the SIDS record the data of every car that passes them.
Both ways.
Both ways. So, and does that come out on a spreadsheet?
I hope so.
Because we can easily see just how many people are 10% above the speed limit. And then once we get that number, we can pass on to police and say, look, X% are always above 10%. So there should be good ways of doing that then. I look forward to seeing that. I love spreadsheets. Councillor Fairman.
With that, 12 miles an hour above the speed limit, is that a some sort of Navon policy, or is that a national police?
It's the advice that I was given from Somerset Highways, who have passed that information forward previously. So it's their information that suggests that that's the average. When I've had the conversations with the police directly, if that's different, I will be pleased to share that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Councillor Ellison.
So we've got 3 now, and was it an extra 3 you were thinking of buying? So that would take us up to 6 in total. And is there a little list somewhere, whether it's for our eyes only or public, as in the location? So that if somebody says, well, I'm worried about speed on my road, I want the SID, can I direct them to a page that explains to them exactly, this is when it's going to be coming to, your street, or this is how you request the SID visits your street?
I think the short answer is yes. The practicalities of that and putting that schedule together that we then are obliged to stick to may be a little more challenging to put in place because our resources and our demands are changing quite quickly at the moment. But yes, I think it would be a good deterrent in itself to have people aware that the SID will be in their road at this time, because it will hopefully encourage responsible residents to make themselves a little more visible potentially and challenge when they do see something else that isn't right. So the short answer is yes. timescale wise, detail wise, to be considered.
Oh, and just to comment, I think this 12, whatever it is, over the speed limit on average is a disgrace, especially because the speed limit is set way too high. It's not set at a safe limit for vulnerable pedestrians. But I don't think Somerset Highways gives a whatever about that.
Yes, with that 12 miles per hour set up 30 miles an hour.
I haven't got the detail for the others because, quite frankly, it's not relevant to our use of those SIDs. We're not on major roads with the higher speed limit.
The last question, actually, I've just reminded. I'm assuming we're buying 3 of the same that we have at the moment, which factory operators. So will we have 7 out at any one time?
6. We'll have all 6 out.
6 out. I thought we had 4.
We got 3. We'll get
I thought we had 4 out. Okay, so we've got 3. So we'll have 6 out. Because I noticed that the batteries literally only last 1 week.
They're designed to last a week, and then you get swapped out, and then there's a 2-week limit to where the SIDs should be placed.
Right. So yeah, so a SID will be in there roughly for about 4 weeks.
Yeah, Christmas was a period where we couldn't.
I think it's very important that we do have a schedule of someone going out regularly, checking and changing the batteries, because the SID up in my area has been on working for several times. But mind you, it has been there longer than it should be. Yeah. Councillor Fairbairn.
The council paid for the Stead Grove Speedwatch group to upgrade their SIDs to have solar panels on them, and that obviously made them last a bit longer. Will the ones we be buying also be solar power panelled?
No, they won't, because Highways' recommendation is to avoid that if we can, for 2 reasons. One is there's extra weight that goes on each of the lampposts, and it renders an awful lot more of the lampposts not suitable for carrying those. That results in having to spend £210 or whatever it is to put a separate post in the ground to accommodate that SID for the duration that it's there. So that's quite an expensive additional expense for the council. The second is that replacing them and recharging the batteries for the non-solar powered versions and moving them around is a 1-person job under the Chapter 8 highways regulations. When you have the solar panel as a separate item, you need 2 people, and it puts an additional person at risk each time. And it's a lot longer to do that job than it is to unclip and move it and clip it onto a bracket, which we would have already pre-installed at new locations.
You are a font of knowledge, Paul.
I am with SIDs mechanism for public toilets.
All right. Well, if there are no other comments, we can move on to the next item, which is the waste bins tender. And I believe this is Paul again.
Yes, it is. Sorry, it's my show again tonight. The waste bins tender is live. We've got a couple more weeks before we open those bids and assess them, and hopefully get a contractor to supply them. There's been a number of questions about the design of them. We've had to go out to a more open playing field in terms of the design, rather than specifying that they've got to match what we've already got, because that kind of says you've got to go to this manufacturer, which is against the spirit and the law of the tendering process. So we've had to open it up to other options that meet a particular criteria, and we hope to have an update for the next Ops and Assets Committee, having opened and assessed those tenders and being able to go forward with the replacements.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Furman?
Thank you. Yes, there were a couple of bins in Stabley Grove that weren't included in this round of tendering. Will there be perhaps another round, later in the year or maybe next year for other bins within our town council area?
Hopefully, the first tranche here, which was slightly different from our usual operation in that we're supporting Somerset Council with the replacement list that they produced to start with, many of which are outside our asset areas. But certainly the next round, there is budget for bin replacements, and we would look to be using that budget for those replacements on a priority basis. So it'd be interesting to see the condition of those compared to other areas of the town. But certainly this initial quantity should certainly help with the wider community. But yes, I see this being an ongoing thing, but not necessarily at the scale that this first tranche is addressing.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, right. So the next one, an update on our depot.
Okay, so that's exciting because tomorrow we're assessing the 5 tender nominations that came in. So we got to the point at which we're able to open those tenders. I've opened them up. Donna and I together, as was the requirement of the tender process, did that in person and jointly, and jotted down the initial prices that those tenders provided us with. There is some positive news with some of those prices being within the upper limit of the tender that was published. And that upper limit is below the amount previously authorised for going forward with this project by full council. So there are already some savings within what we've received. Tomorrow is the date we've set aside for that full assessment. So that's partly on price, but the quality elements will come into that if needed. But there is quite a high weighting against price. So yes, that is the update, but it's looking positive at this point in time with 5 contractors expressing their interest.
Yes, Councillor Evans.
Are these all 5 quite local ones, or is it kind of a mix of quite, relatively local and further afield? Just interested.
There is a mix, and to be quite honest, I haven't had the time to look that in depth at them at the moment. I have some questions around some of the prices, whether that is included or not, so I haven't even been able to prioritise the pricing yet without that confirmation. There's one in Bristol, there's a couple of local ones. I think one was further afield, but I can't remember where. But they took the trouble to come to site and looked at the depot. We had quite a few visits, which was positive. So people have seen what they're pricing against, which is all positive.
Any other comments? Will the tenders be coming back to this committee, or do they go to full council?
They don't need to go to either because delegated powers are given to the clerk to make a decision on the contractor. What I will arrange is when the contractor has been chosen, that they come and give a presentation to full council, either before we start, although the timescale is quite tight, we need to get underway quickly, but certainly sometime during the project to give a good overview of where we are and what the proposals entail.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay, right, thank you very much, Paul. All right, that might be. Right, so now we come on to Cannon Street toilet, the budget update. And I believe this is you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. I love the new badges.
If anyone else would like a toilet badge, I had some toilet badges made because to be the chair of the toilet working group is, an accolade that I never thought I would achieve. But we are doing some great things, as this report shows. So we're just coming forward to Dave and the toilet working group, just to give an update on where we are with regards to Cannon Street. We originally had a budget approved for 250,000. And I guess for me personally, you always will see in the media or on social media comments or when we're out knocking on doors saying that councils don't get value for money and that people like to rip off councils when doing business with us. However, we know very differently because of all the procurement work that we do and the way that we challenge ourselves to not just get best value for money, but to get social value and to look to do the best that we can, that isn't the case. However, when it comes to Cannon Street toilets, not only are we doing great things, actually we're coming in under the original budget that is set, which is great news. So actually the final contracted amount is looking to be around 210,000 excluding VAT. So that gives us around £40,000 approximately left in the budget. As the toilet working group, we always had aims that we didn't just want to do the toilets well, we wanted to be able to add value into them. So we came up with a list of kind of priorities that if we did have funds left over, that potentially we could use the money for. One of it was around actually equipping the changing places facility. So we wanted to build it out so that there was space, but we weren't sure when that original budget was set that actually we could do the changing places work. Alongside that, we wanted to put solar panels on there so that we were meeting our green credentials and obviously raising funds but getting value back from the sunlight. And then thirdly, was around rainwater harvesting. So our priorities are actually in that order that I've discussed them. That if possible, that £40,000 we'd like to use towards doing solar PV. We know that there are grants out there that we could actually go out and try and get grant funding. However, that would potentially mean that it wouldn't align with the timescales of the project. And we personally don't want to open some brand new toilets to then shut them down again, to then have to do additional work and all scaffolding to put solar PV. So if we can do it as part of the project, it makes sense to get those toilets up and running. And then secondly is to kit out those changing places so that actually we have an accessible changing places unit right in the centre of town really, or just slightly off centre. Rainwater harvesting, it would be great to do. What we can look to do is to make it so that if we can get rainwater harvesting, we kind of do the preemptive work, but actually we think that it's too costly and that actually it may need some additional work doing that won't come in on budget and would actually probably not on time either. So that's the update, but we have got forward thinking toilets in my view if we manage to pull all of this off.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for all the work. And you'll be working along, of course, with Megan very closely, who is sadly leaving us next week. So going off to Malaysia for a couple of years. So Megan, thank you very much for everything you've been doing with the toilet group. So it's been absolutely invaluable. And it's a shame you won't be here to see them. Is it just to come?
We will send you pictures and videos.
So well, yeah, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Finish Amy and so yes, hope it all goes well. Yeah, I think it's great if we can make our toilets as sustainable as possible. So you know, harvesting, I would probably you know, really want that, you know, rainwater harvesting and the solar PV. I guess the solar PV and the rainwater harvesting, these things to do as you're building it, whereas the changing places you could probably do afterwards because you only close up one toilet at that point. You've still got the others working. So, but yes, any other comments? Anyone? Oh,
Very extremely good news, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we get all of these
Yeah.
extra, well, they're not extra, we would have done them integrally anyway, but I think that's just fabulous news. Get brand spanking new toilets, accessible ones with the solar PV, possibly also the rainwater harvesting. It's a really good outcome. Well done to everybody.
I do know that the chair of street council was asking me about them, and I was saying, "Oh, we've got this coming up," and he was showing great. Has he been in touch then?
Yeah, he has been in touch.
Ah, yes, he was asking me about it, and I was singing our praises of the Cannon Street toilets. So will any of that be replicated? If there are no other comments, then you can move on. Yeah. Lovely, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I think this is marked for a decision on the
Oh,
agenda.
was it? Only that we've noted it. Okay, so so I need a proposer. Yeah. So thank you, Councillor Thurman. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. All those to show that we have noted. Yes, I think you have to vote. Okay. Lovely. I think that was unanimous there. Right. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Right. Our last item. Okay, now this is probably going to be a little contentious. Oh, and this report is on the email, isn't it? So the bulk of this item is about the procurement of vehicles for the maintenance team to be able to go about and do the work of maintaining our parks and our sports pitches and maintaining them to a very high standard. This isn't going to involve the procurement of 3 diesel vehicles, which is not ideal. And myself and Councillor Ellis had a long discussion about this afternoon, and looking at alternatives. Are there EV alternatives out there? I then had a discussion with Paul and Donna after that, Councillor Ellis, and Paul has prepared some materials to explain the rationale for this. It would seem that the ones we saw today weren't going to have the load carrying capacity that is required for the work. And so I'm going to hand over to Paul before we enter discussion, so Paul can give us an update on this report.
Think.
Yeah.
So as you will be no doubt aware, we have climate emergency, and so far, since I've been in post and since we've been looking at various projects that I've been involved in, we have tried very consciously to take the most environmentally friendly method of purchasing, of refurbishing, of using, of adding to our assets, particularly the depot, where we're looking at the solar systems. We've already purchased 5 EV vans for delivery of the in-house cleaning of the public toilets, and to start towards the maintenance team working in a more environmentally friendly way, using those vehicles to have the minimum impact. So they are job specific currently, rather than somebody driving a diesel pickup all day because there's a diesel pickup, and somebody driving an electric vehicle because there's an electric vehicle. The way we're working is that if there's a bigger job that requires a bigger vehicle, that vehicle is apportioned to that job, somebody takes it out to do it. If we don't have to do that, we rely on the EVs. So we're trying to take a route that has minimal impact. However, technology and supply chains do not support us to go EV in everything at this point in time. So having considered lots of options and talked to lots of people, gone to trade shows and looked at what is out in the market, what we're trying to do with this is minimize the amount of fossil fuel vehicles, and where we do need them, to look at those that are most fuel efficient and most environmentally friendly with the latest diesel engines that meet the current emission standards. So that's the context that we're looking at. We have a service to deliver. It's a major undertaking of ours. And it's a starting point for us with potentially other works in the future that we might get engaged in, looking after ground services. We've got all our parks, there are other open spaces, and there's an opportunity to have some income generation from the setup of the new grounds maintenance service and offer these services to neighbouring authorities or schools within our town, and anything else actually that generates an income for us. So there are 4 vehicles here, 2 of which are on the road generally. We're looking at pickups that have a capacity to tow a tilt bed trailer, which itself has a capacity of 3.5 tons with whatever load is on it. The other 2 are for directly maintaining the spaces that we have. One being an out front mower, so a sit-on mower that has the cutting deck out in front of it, and it covers a wide area very quickly, and deals with football pitches and sports areas and peripheral areas quite quickly and very economically when you look at the resources that we have available to deliver. The other one is a compact tractor. That has turf tyres, that would also cut grass. But in addition to that, because we can then use it all year, it has the capacity to have all the peripheral equipment with one machine that deals with hedges, deals with trees. You can put a chipper on it. You can put a big brush to clear pathways and avoid the use of strimmers and leaf blowers and things that arguably are considered to be more harmful to wildlife and that environment. So we try to go EV wherever we can. There are a number of small pieces of equipment that we also need to set up this service. We've managed to go electric on all of those. So that's hedge cutters, trimmers, blowers, smaller lawn mowers. We can go for chainsaws, the line marker, all of those are battery powered and rechargeable. But there are not the options for these 4 vehicles. So what I've done is looked at the 2 pickups that we need, which have that towing capacity. We've gone for the double cab. What that means operationally is that we can send a whole grounds maintenance team in one vehicle with one journey to a site. When they finish that site, they move on to the next site. That's how we intend to operate ground service. Don't want to be sending 3 people in 3 separate vehicles to do different bits of work at the same place. So in the bigger scheme, yes, they're diesel vehicles, but we need to operate them effectively and efficiently and cause minimum impact. So what I have done is printed off a picture so you can see what we're looking at. It's got specification and you can see the reasons why that vehicle is what we need. And certainly I'm open to any suggestions as to where we might get an EV option, but I can assure you we've done extensive research and nothing is available that meets the criteria to deliver this service. If I may pass then to you, Councillor, just for distribution.
Just to say, Councillor, Paul had come across that company, talked about at, what was it, which fair was it?
The Saltex in Birmingham.
Yes. So Paul is aware of this.
So that essentially will get a whole grounds team out in one vehicle with all their equipment to a site. And then on to the next one. And the proposal, as you know, with the structure chart, is to have 2 grounds teams working. So that's that bit. Is it easier for me to answer any questions on that element to start with?
Yes, I'm assuming you're buying a trailer for each vehicle.
We're getting one trailer to start with, but we will need a second trailer, yes, because of the 2 main bits of kit are there. One is faster on the road than the other. So in terms of phasing, we'd look at getting the tractor more or less itself to the site, but it still requires a smaller vehicle with the rest of the team. In terms of efficiency, yes, we'd get a second trailer and send the 2 teams out as a whole. But it's a starting point for us and it's a new service. And until we've got all the staff in place, particularly the open spaces lead, we won't know exactly what that scheduling looks like. I need that expertise to put that together.
Right, Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, Councillor is still not happy about this at all. I've seen online, you can get electric tractors, you can get electric mowers, you can get things, you know, things that are diesel reconverted to be EV, you can get all sorts of configurations of all sorts of things. So just sort of going, well, 4 vehicles will be diesel because they all have to be able to carry whatever it is, 3.5.
2 to tow and 2, which I'll come on to deliver, to do the cutting.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, because you're talking about convenience of everyone being able to go out together. So actually, do we not need to go back and look at the spec and adjust that? Because my sort of thinking would be, put diesel out of the picture. Tell me how you can do it with EV. That will be my take on it. And I'd love to know if we've spoken to other parks, grounds maintenance teams in other town councils to see what their experience has been, where they've bought stuff like the ET Lander, the what's it called? Well, the French one that's like amazing. It's very, very, yeah, Tasia, very, very compact. It can take a ton, it can be a tippy truck, it has ramps, it can take a mower, it could be electric. So I'm not convinced, I mean, I'm not an expert on grounds maintenance by any means, but I don't think I can support this just because I'm hearing too much, oh, we'll get a diesel truck, we'll get a diesel one. And the tippy truck that I've seen out, the one that we've bought that was diesel, I just sort of think it's not that much different. How often do you need to lug around 3.5 tons?
It'll be most days. It'll be most days. It's the means of getting.
Amenity will.
There are two other machines there. That's the compact tractor with its specification, including the details about its fishing engines these days. And that is the mower, both of which will be on that trailer and be carried to sites each day by the vehicle that's capable of carrying them there and taking the team as one shot. So the size of the mower that we need and the tractor that we need, because of the areas we have to cover, isn't available in EV version. The Americans tried it on a compact tractor and have now stopped making that because the feedback was it didn't last a working day. So there isn't the technology there to support this at this point in time.
Councillor Stainfield.
Yeah, thanks for this. Don't want to be too controversial with Caroline here, but I fully support this approach actually that you're taking. Well, I work in the agricultural industry and also get involved with amenity. So, and I know a ton sounds a lot, but it's actually not when it comes to equipment. It's not just about the load, the payload. You've also got towing. You've got people you're carrying. There's so much more you've got to take into account whenever you're trying to do work like this. So we have 18 trucks where I work. We've looked at electric vehicles, but at the moment the technology isn't there. And I think what you can do is buy EV wherever you can for equipment, whether it be leaf blowers, whether it be equipment we're using out in the parks. But when it comes to heavy maintenance equipment, you are going to need diesel. It's just not there yet. The only question I would have is over the rental of the Hilux. That's quite expensive given the cost of one.
It's fully inclusive of maintenance.
Yeah.
All maintenance charges as well.
But I would say that I'm sort of almost going to go back to myself here. Because of the changes in company law and car taxation, industry uses a lot of trucks for commercial vehicles. That's going to change by 2029, 2030. All commercial vehicles of twin cab trucks, which is what these are, will go into full taxation. So actually quite a lot of those trucks will come into the market at that point in time. So the value of that truck actually will drop quite quickly in 5 years' time. So rental probably actually is the easy way to go.
The other reason for rental is because if that technology does improve significantly over the rental period, then we have the option of changing to that without being penalised adversely because of the drop in the value of those trucks. So that's specifically why we're looking at leasing those as opposed to purchasing outright. Whereas with the other two pieces of equipment, it's the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I think that EV, as it progresses, it's going to get much better. But at the moment, for heavy duty work, the power isn't there, and it gets a lot worse in the winter. And we've seen that with the electric machines that we work with in the industry. So I think it will come, the technology will come, but I don't think it's there right now. So you do have to look at the short-term management of the problem, which I think is do EV where you can, but where you need to make it safe and doable for the ground staff is use diesel.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I agree with Judy on this. So from my point of view, we have a huge ambition, like Caro's vocalised, to be as environmentally friendly and climate sustainable as we can be. However, I think that ambition is far greater than what is actually available for the here and now. And so what we need to do, from my perspective, is to make sure that when we make this deal, and it was good, Paul, that you actually said that we have the ability to change vehicles during the lease period, so that as technology catches up, or we need to do something different, we may take on more open spaces, we may then need to adapt, and we may, that we can change that within the lease period rather than going out and buying directly. I think there's something for me around then how we look to, and I only thought about this, and again, I may not have the knowledge in grounds maintenance that others have, in the fact of how do we look to future-proof some of the buildings that we've got in the areas, so that perhaps we can do storage of things, so that we can like charge electric batteries on site. So in Hamilton Park, could we put storage in that then charges, so we're not having to cart that around? For me, it's about making conscious choices when we're looking not to have EV vehicles. So if we are going for diesel, that we are using one that carries the most people possible, so we're not running multiple vehicles, that it can carry the payload or the load or weight that we need it to carry, so we're not having to do multiple trips, and that we have vehicles. I find it really interesting on the, I think it was a tractor, that you can put a snowplow on it. So again, that we're future-proofing ourselves to be able to then maybe use that vehicle for alternative means, such as if we were to ever, please let's get some snow here in Taunton, but actually we could support keeping it clear. And I also wonder whether there's a possibility of putting a snowplow on here. The work where I worked once had a vehicle like this, and they put a snowplow on the front to clear our car park. So rather than have a bigger vehicle, they would use that to then make sure us as staff could park. On those odd occasions, we got snow.
The other benefit with the pickups is we can put a Bowser pressure washer, we can do watering with it. There are so many other aspects to those specific vehicles. You're right about the snowplow tractor. It will also fit on the front of the lawnmower. And the benefit with, we've pared back the number of vehicles to deliver the service that we believe we need at this point in time. However, we also have to have the resilience. So one of each means that both can cut grass if we need it to. It avoids people cancelling matches and not getting the income from that. For example, if a machine was to break down, it gives us that backup. But they need to be of a scale that's big enough to cut that grass effectively and efficiently, get that site finished and move on to the next one. And that scheduling is critical, and these machines allow us to do that properly. As we grow, we might need to look at other options, and that longer term investment, as you said, into potential EV charge points in some of our pavilions, we're not there at this point in time, and we need to deliver a service from the 1st of April. So this is as good a compromise as I've been able to find. I don't want to go and use fossil fuels. Personally, I do a lot in my own life to try and help our ambitions here. But sometimes it's not possible to go beyond that compromise position. And that's where we are with this proposal, I'm afraid.
Sorry, can I just clarify, the cost of the lease enables us to swap the vehicle during that 5 year?
They've said that we can, as technology advances, there is a scale of charges that's appropriate if you hand it in early. Obviously, the lease is determined to make an amount of profit over the period of the lease for the company that supplies. This company is the one that currently supplies to Somerset Council. So they're a big player in the council market.
Right. Any other comments? Councillor Ellis?
Is there an issue about leaf blowers? Are we ditching leaf blowers?
I would very much like to ditch leaf blowers. What's the
So I would
pointless piece of equipment?
on the basis of the knowledge that I now have and the movement towards do away with leaf blowers, then yes, I think as part of our journey forwards, we probably can. However, because our parks are public spaces and we, in maintaining them, have the potential to put leaves and grass cuttings and things on our pathways, I think we have a duty of care to get them cleared from a safety angle. However, brushes, rakes, and the potential to put a big brush on the mower when the job's been finished will give us options going forwards.
Can I just ask, is a blower a more efficient way than a large brush?
And if
Do
you
you want to test it out?
I'm not.
Do you want to do a competition?
go on to the mower, which diesel, you'd probably be better one with an electric one. If you're trying to be more electric. It depends on the requirement of it.
I guess once it's attached to a vehicle and
Once
it's
it's-
using the,
How important is it to move the
If
leaves?
we are going to like,
You need to move
for
leaves.
me, I do think we need to move leaves off our pathways in the fact that they become
yeah.
slippery and a
Yeah.
hazard for those that use our parks just in general. I'm wondering whether, and again, I'm not a gardener, why we don't actually collect them up to compost them and create some form of mulch, or
Well-
maybe that's not what leaves do,
well,
I don't know.
I thought the aim was to push one side and allow to mulch down.
That's
where
why
they were.
I put them on.
Okay.
We have passed both the leaf blower and the strimmer, because I had a bit of an issue with the strimmer. I don't like plastic strimmers for the net. If you're distributing plastic amongst all your soil. And we have passed this through Jordan, our climate officer. And we're going to accept some, whatever recommendations, or whatever recommendations you think we'll consider. Councillor Stainthorpe.
Yeah, just one thing, when you mentioned strimmers.
How are you?
You can tell them to amenity. Yeah, strimmers are not particularly good things. Certainly not for the operators. There's something called white finger syndrome, where it's down to vibrations of strimmers. Strimmers also cause quite a lot of damage, whether it's lifting up stones, but also you can imagine what happens when they hit the odd dog poop bag. Not good for the user and not good for anybody in the vicinity. It's a serious
I didn't want.
problem. It's a very big problem in the councils. It's one thing that over the years I've heard a lot about. So yeah, you do have to think long and hard about strimmers.
So the proposal with the strimmers is that there is a need for them, but it's not for the wide strimming that you see happening along the highway verges, for example, where those types of things will be hidden within a larger patch of grass. However, there is a need to trim around benches and tree bases and play equipment and all that sort of stuff at close range.
Of course, Councillor Stainthorpe.
Oh yeah, just have to come back. I know that this is one that comes in regularly to Taunton in the past, is not to use strimmers near trees. It damages the bark, and when you cut the bark, it gets infection into it and it kills the tree. So please, the trees along Parkfield Road in the past have been damaged and died back. No trimming around trees, please.
Yeah, there's a buffer, but it's more the hard surfaces. It's the play equipment, it's the fin posts, it's the gold mouths. You know, there is a need for that. I can't get somebody down there with a pair of shears or scissors. It's not feasible. But they're not intended for the wider spread use that creates that level of fear.
And I'm hoping this is something that our climate officer, Jordan, will advise us on, and give us the best practice, and actually best environmental on this.
And the ones we have gone, sorry, our battery and the vibration and noise levels are very, very low because of that.
Now, I've noticed Donna's been online for the whole meeting, so I will give her an opportunity to say something. You don't have to, but since you have been with us, is there anything you wanted to say, Donna? You don't have to.
No, yeah, listening to your discussion, obviously fully understand, obviously, Councillor Ellis's points and thoughts on of this, but I was pleased to hear, obviously, Councillor Stainthorpe and Smith Roberts, your views on it as well. There's been a lot of work undertaken by Paul to look at, the value of how we can achieve running the service, and I think that's the biggest thing that we need to think about at the moment. Is it's a massive undertaking from the 1st of April to be able to deliver it with no drop in service and the equipment that's needed to do that. I know that we've interrogated him as other officers as the decisions and thoughts, and he's been able to defend it and prove to us that he has looked and the research has taken place, but unfortunately, as you say, the technology is just not there at the moment for everything that we want to do.
Lovely, thank you very much, Donna. Well, there's no other comments. I'm ready to move to a vote on this. Okay, proposed, and that's Smith Robert, seconded Councillor Stainthorpe. I am more with Councillor Ellis, and so it's with a heavy heart that I will vote for this, but I do see the urgency to get our services up and running ASAP, and listen to the arguments this afternoon from Paul and Donna. I can see that we just got one vehicle just making one journey with a large team that works there for the day, then back. There is a lot of efficiency there, which we wouldn't perhaps achieve. And of course, the fact that in order to achieve that efficiency, we have to carry more equipment that an EV vehicle just can't carry. So with that, I've had a proposal, I've had a seconder. All those in favour, please raise their hands. All those against, please raise their hands.
One against.
Anyone abstaining? This has carried. And that concludes our business for the evening. So thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Smith Roberts, for subbing in for Councillor Garside.